So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream, recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm playing in the Colin Thompson Fantastic Colour Book, and I've gone back to pastels, but I was using some traditional pastels, but the blending tool is hurting my hands, so I'm going to have to resort back to my pencils and 3 riggers for blending, rather than using a proper traditional blending and then fixing it with a paintbrush. I'm actually going to be just scratching colour on and then blending it with a paintbrush with a rigger. I find that's going to be the easiest way. So I've got my traditional set, and they've kind of got 3 names for chocolate and 3 tones, but I did a comparison and most of the colours are in the 72 in their new set of Derwent Pastel Pencils. So you still can get nearly every single colour that's in here, but I just find these a little bit softer and they're easier for my hands to use, so I do like these older colours. And I'm using the number 1, 2 and 3 Dale Rowney riggers, and then I have an Art Master Pearl Series 55 and it's a 10-0, and I use that for tiny spaces. So if I kind of dunk them all in water, you can all see what they're supposed to look like. So I normally work with 3 riggers, and then I have a very faint one, and I do like this Art Master Pearl 55. It's quite a nice thin brush. So I'll zoom in and see if I can get quite in there. So I shall I'll do this tiny bit first here. I think I'm going to use the chocolate because it's one of my favourite colours. So these will be slightly different, but there's a chocolate colour, and then there's kind of a fawn, and then there's an in-between. And if you look at that, you can see there's 3 tones. So I'm going to put the darkest first, and then I'm going to put the mid tone where I would think it's going to be the next. And then if there was only going to be any highlight, that's going to be the 3rd one. Sorry, thumb's in the way. Hands are playing up today. So I've managed to scratch a little bit of colour, and normally, as I say, I would use a blending tool. Just see if that makes any difference, just using it now. Starting with the palest, and I like this one because it's very, very firm, and then going into the mid-tone. And it does give the best blend, this, I have to say. I do like it. It's a nice way to work. And if you feel that you've lost your highlight, I use a Derwent electric eraser, and you can just kind of give everything a little bit of a highlight. And then I do have a fan brush, just to brush the pieces of eraser or any little bit of dust. If you're making too much bits of dust from your pencil or pastel, you are wasting your colour, and you are also creating dust. But some way to get away from that is to have a clean, or it doesn't have to be clean, but a damp baby wipe just at the top. You can do that without spilling everything. So if this is your page, you want a good inch or so away, and then when you brush, you're brushing the dust onto the baby wipe, and because it's damp, the baby wipe will grab it. But don't let the damp baby wipe touch any of your papers because it will curl them and make them damp. So that's what's happening at the top of the screen. But I try not to make too much dust because all it is it's your colour that you're wasting. Oh yes, Claudia says she wishes. Yeah, I've bought lots. This is the one, but I think you've got to be in a shop. This is it doesn't say it's extra firm, but it won't move. That's why I was disappointed with these. They say extra firm. They say firm, but they're bendy. There's the black ones, and they are extra firm, and they're okay, but I can't get a bigger one. So the darker ones are extra firm. But of course these would be wonderful if you were working on proper pastel paper, because you just want to gently blend. You don't want to kind of rub it into infinity. Whereas here we need to grind that into there so it's going to stay. So I can't really touch that because it's still not fixed. But I kind of like that one, so I'm going to fix it because I like it. So a brush dunked in water, twisted to a point on baby wipe, and then just stroked over the top in one motion. And that's set now. So I think I want to do the same with this one. I think I like this one. I think I want this to be the same. And of course the advantage of the pencils is you've got more of a point, even though I don't actually sharpen mine. You have a point and there's no mess. And you can literally just stroke the page. So if you've got bad hands, you don't have all that blending and hard work to do. Another way of doing it is the brush dunked in water, twisted to a point, and then you can manipulate it with water and it becomes a watercolour. The disadvantage is that once you've blended it, you've set it. It's not going to go anywhere. You can't erase anything. So you have to be very precise because it is now a watercolour. It is no longer a pastel. So you've got to be that little bit more precise because it's actually set now. Is that one? So I think I'm going to do the bigger door as well. Most of the work's been done. I might leave, unless I have a smoke grey, I think I'm going to leave that. So we've got a bit of dark brown here. This is a really good book because most of the grayscale's been done for you, so you could just put a colour straight over the top and it would still look really good. Again, just think where the colour would be and then leave room for the highlights. And if you've put it somewhere that you don't want it, now is the time to take it off so that you can make that highlight again. and we want most of it covered. And then you can take your clean blending tool and in little circular motions you can blend them. So you do your highlights first and then introduce the colour. And at this point, because again we're using a blending tool, we're not using the brush, you can get a lovely blend and you don't have to worry that you're blending over something. So you can go for the blend rather than thinking about shape, because we can go back in with the electric eraser and take it off. But if you were blending with a paintbrush, you couldn't do that. And you can get some really nice subtle blends. And my hand's on here and it doesn't matter because it's set. So I quite like that door, but I think I want a highlight. So I'm going to take even though I probably will do this black, I think, or a cold metal silver. I need to take that warm brown off and create just a couple of highlights. Where we would think there would be a highlight. And if you do need a sharper point, I buy the little boxes and I swap them out. So I keep these for other things and I use a new one, and that will give you really sharp, fine highlight if you need to be. But I'm not being very precious with this today. Just taking off, because I want that to be a cold metal, not a warm brown. So this, again, remember, it's not set, so I can't brush it off with my hands. I've got to use a soft brush. Just a soft brush, because it's still not set. And if I'm happy with it, so I think I'm going to do the other side before I fix it. But if I did put my hand on it, it would smudge. Now it's not too many different colours, so it doesn't really matter too much. But if it was, you know, some very different colours, then it would. But this is how I did the Hagrid page. But it does take a while, but you get quite nice realistic effects. So it all depends on what you want. And if your hands work or not. That's always a good point. And then in the darkest places, we want to warm those up. So we want this true chocolate brown, which is quite a warmish brown. So it's going to make this door become kind of warm again. Because the grayscale really does darken things. So I've managed to be a bit more careful there. So I've got to clean the blending tool. And I find the best way is just to wipe it on a baby wipe on a hard surface and then just dry it with your thumb and it becomes perfectly clean. Start with the palest first, and apologies if the thumb's in the way. And I'd rather have a nice blend. I'll move that further down in a second. I'd rather have a nicer blend than be bothered about going over the metal, because I want to keep that wood going in that direction. My hand will not do this today. Let's see if this will do it. I knew my hand would be bad. If I use it one day, I lose it the next. So it's almost nicely blended. Is that some really nice dark rich tones in there? And now I need to get the if you ever work with charcoal, I used to work with charcoal. I used to draw with an eraser. So get the charcoal down and then do all the work with an eraser, and then go back in it. Just work light to dark all the time. So quite like that. And the door handle wants to be back. So I kind of like that, and I'll just pan out a little bit because it does look like it's a bit squished, but it should be okay. And the colour might look a bit better as well. So and of course this one is a real old grungy door, so it's kind of kept that. So again, just really carefully brush off the top, and if you're very, very, I might just have a highlight actually on the door. So we had a bit here, had a bit there. And again, most of the work's been done for you. And remember, less is more. So we can take that there. There's never a lot of work to do when it's grayscale, though, I have to say. If it's a line drawing, you have to work a lot more, a lot harder. So I just need, I'm going to go with a bit bigger brush actually. I'm just going to use an ordinary brush. It's an ordinary brush. Just to see what happens, because I've not done this before. But again, dried it off so it's barely damp. And you just want one very soft layer. And you will bring off some colour. And it will go slightly darker. And sometimes the darker ones, very dark colours, need just an extra little bit. Because there's more pigment. And that's it. That door is finished. So again, I like that way of working. It's quite fast. I'm going to pop the 3 coloured chocolate ones away. So I use F faint at the bottom. I have the dense, I think it is, and then the bold one at the top. So my little pencils are away. So I need to look for stone colours. There's a burnt sienna, but there's a brown ochre that looks quite nice. So I think I might actually like the ochre colours. So again, I've got 3 here. One's kind of a sandy colour, dark sand, a light sand, and a kind of off cream, a dull cream probably is the best way to describe them. A cold cream rather than an orangey one. Oh, thank you. Yes, the reason is this, but that's why true pastelists don't fix their work. If you fix it with fixative or hairspray or water, it goes a couple of tones darker. and so that's why true pastelists don't, because it does spoil the colour, but it's in a book. But now it isn't a pastel anymore, it's just a soft watercolour. But I love the fact that these are really well pigmented, so they're really bright colours. So the colour you see at the end of your pencil is actually near as damn it what you get. Whereas some of the other pencils we have that are water based, it's the binder that changes the colours, like the Intense and some others, and cheaper pencils with more binder and less pigment. But of course, these are pastel, so there's a very small amount of binder in here. Most of this is pigment, and so you get vibrant colours. Just as the Daler Round in most of this is soft pigment. And so there's not much difference between these traditional vintage pastels and soft pastel. Whereas the other pencils that we have today, this newer Derwent and the Faber-Castell are the same. They're probably like the Inscribe. I find one. They're a little bit harder, so they're the square pastel. But they're easier to work with and you don't waste anything. Soft pastels are by nature extremely soft. And obviously people had asked Derwent to change so that their pastels weren't as crumbly, because these are really crumbly. But they're very handy being in a pencil form. And they're very easy to use. So again, I've got a D and a B for bold and an F for faint. So I'm going to look at my, and obviously the F faint one's going to be in the middle of the stones. Now when I did the stones on the Harry Potter on Hagrid's Cottage, I think I used 16 different colours. And I basically scratched every scrap of white paper had colour on it before I blended it. Now I could have looked for different colours, but I just decided that I was going to use this group of 3 that Derwent has, because it's the same colour, it's got the same name. But as I say, I do a comparison of colours from the vintage set to the new set, and you can find these colours in the new set, but they are named differently. Now I don't seem to have too much dark, so I'm going to be a bit sparing with this, because then that's going to make that pop out, because that's quite dark. Sorry, whoopsie. So I'm just going to put just a little bit. After all, you know, they are shapes. So everything's got a bit of a scratch of colour. Now you don't have to use 3, you can use 6, you can use 12 on the Hagrid page. I think there's quite a few. It'll be the first video, but there is definitely quite a few colours in there. And on one side of the cottage there was more moss, because I used an actual photograph. So there's more moss on one side and the other bricks are creamier on the other side. So I use the same colours, but I just use more of one. So this, blending the lightest colour first. little circular motions I think is best, unless you're doing something like wood, which obviously has a grain. And then we're kind of just blending the next colour out. And if we make a real boo-boo, we can erase it, and we can add a tiniest amount of colour on top. Not much, but we can either do a highlight or we can do a shadow. But that's really quick. So I'm quite happy with that, but if I wanted to put a tiny bit of a highlight on the middle of every stone as it's going round, then I can do. I can highlight that one and this one. And again, it's all the work's been done for you, so we know where the highlights are. But remember, that is still pastel, so we've got to be very careful with it. So just erase all the, brush away all the erasy bits, and then that's, now I kind of like that. But if I wanted to put a little bit darker, I'd go for the chocolate. There is a chocolate here, so you know, you can do what you want. Just a little bit. Now I shouldn't probably have used chocolate, so I'm going to take that off. So you know, it's a dark colour that I can erase it because I haven't blended it. It'd been a little bit more difficult if I'd have blended it, but I've taken that chocolate off because I've decided I actually want this to be, although it's a warm brick, I want it to be a cold shadow. Now there's a French grey there, but and I don't want black, but I do love my indigo. But there's a dark olive there, and I think a dark olive, I don't know, I can't decide. I'll try both because I can erase them. So we've got this dark indigo here. I think I like that one. The olive would be warmer. So what other colours have we got? I think, just try that one. I think I'm going for olive because it is a warmish. Now this is obviously taking the underneath one away as well, but so don't ever be frightened that you've done something wrong. So I like that. So the blue indigo is for another day. So I'm going with the dark olive, and I think that might just give the stones just a bit more kind of oomph. And there wasn't very much kind of anyway. It's just going to give just the tiniest bit. You see how wonderful that's just given that a bit more depth. So it makes the shadows pop more. And you can either blend it to nothing, or you can, now obviously it would have been nicer to have a slightly smaller blender, but I don't have one, but it has given that a really nice think it's given it. And I've gone over that thing, but that's okay because I can take it off if I want. All I have to do is just take that one off because I want that highlight on that one and on that one. So you can just go back in there and play a bit, but I think that is just fine. So it's not set, so we need that soft brush to just get rid of the erasing marks. And then I need my number 3 rigger. Take off most of the dampness and then just very carefully make sure I go over the whole lot. And if you want, you can do brick by brick. You probably find your brush dries out very quick because you're fixing, and you can see the tiniest glisten as you go, and then instantly it dries, and that's how you know you've got the paintbrush at the correct dampness. It's not too dry, it's just damp enough. Just got to be a little bit careful when you're going over your whites, your highlights, because you don't obviously want to, because it's pigment and it will move, so you've got to be a little bit careful. I think I want a little bit of a shadow there, but it's wet. One thing I mustn't do is do it while it's wet, so because I'll show you what happens. It becomes very dense. Now I've actually got away with that. So again, that now is completely, it's not a pastel anymore, it's a dried watercolour. So I can put my colours away, and I can look for the next one. So I think and I do keep these the right way around because I do take notice of the colours. The other ones I don't so much, but I do with the pastel pencils. So I really like that little section I've done here. Now it looks like I've got some more stone, so I think that actually that has to be the same colour, so I need to take those ochres out again. But I don't think I want a highlight one. I think most of them are going to be the mid colour because they're all set back a bit, and I can create the tiniest bit of highlight with the eraser, and again I want the olive out. To kind of grunge up that little section a bit. And it doesn't look to be much, but it will just grunge it up. I'm not going to even clean this. I'm going to see if I can keep away from the green until I need to. And that's brightened up the bricks at the front now that are obviously protruding. It's kind of brought those kind of nicely forward a bit. just kind of touch just another stone if I need to. Another corner. If you think it's a bit much, you can go smudge it back over again. I think that side's probably going to be more dark than that one. So there's be a bit of a highlight at that side. And then again, brush away anything else, and then the damp rigger. Just very carefully over the top. You can't do big areas because you'll pick up colour. You need to do smaller areas and keep whooshing your brush out. But because it's only damp anyway, it will dry up very quickly. So most of the time, by the time it's run out, it's picked enough colour up. So we've done this little section. Oh, hi Suzanne, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Hope everybody's well. It's a live stream recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. We have been joined by the Alfie this morning, who decided that he'd like to sit in my seat. I had to get up for the pencils, and he saw an opportunity. So I'm playing in Fantastique, and you just pick away very gently at, if I can find the little mouse, there it is. If you can see, you just keep, I'll just move that down there very carefully. And it's dried, it's set, there's no mess, there's no water, and it's perfect on the other side. So I kind of like that. And I've used kind of grungy colours, but you can go really bright. If it was flowers, you could do it with really bright colours. I like working with pastels, I have to say. I do like working with pastels. I can't think what else I've done with pastels. These would be quite good, I think, to use the pastels, because I didn't think that with the water it would do them any good. So this one I would probably use with the pastels as well. And then a very soft brush. I think this is pastel, with a soft brush over the top. And because these are botanical traditional colours, old colours, because she was an old artist, these are traditional colours. So you can match up the pastels, especially the old pastels, the Daler Rowney. Some of these colours haven't changed since Rembrandt was playing with them. So the colours are nearly always the same. And so you can match up for a colour book. If you want to do them the same, you don't have to do them the same, but if you did. So I don't know if we've got a mint. Let's see if I've got a mint colour. Having said that, I didn't have a mint, but I made mint the other day, and I think it's that with an orange in it. I think. I'm going to have to play about with the colours to see if I can mix and get some really minty colours. But you can get some really nice highlights. So you get the colour on and then you can erase it and get your highlights. So I quite like working that way. This is a quicker way. This is gouache. Again, it depends what type of mood I'm in of how I want to work. But I always knew this was going to be kind of grungy, oldie worldy doors rather than bright, spanking new, shiny ones. So I think I might just do that section there, and then I'm going to end the video because it's been going on a wee while. I think we might have there's a terracotta here. I've got 3 terracottas in this vintage set of mine. So we've got a pale and a deep colour. So obviously the deep colour is going to go up there. And I love this book because all the hard work's been done for you. I think that pink terracotta might be a bit pink, but it'll be toned down, I think. So at the moment that's just pastel. So I'm going to be using my blending tool, and I do have to clean it because it's now still got green on it and olive. And I do find the best way is to just stroke it across a baby wipe on a hard surface, and then you can just manipulate. I've missed a bit there, look. It just comes off a lot easier. My baby wipe's dried out now. But it doesn't take much to come very clean, and then just dry it with your finger. Skin seems to work quite well. And start with the palest first, and again it's a brick, so I'm not going in, I'm using circular motions. If it was wood and there was a grain, I would probably go with a grain, but I don't need to do that here. And when you smush that terracotta onto there, and again, if you're not happy with it, keep blending. And that's kind of really now ground into that paper. I think we might be able to have a little bit of a highlight. One or 2 of those. We'll brush that away, and then I like my number 3 rigger. Very carefully stroke the damp, ending with the darkest, and you can see it goes dark, it pops, and that's, I kind of like that, but pure colorists and pastelists do not do that. When they have finished their work, they don't set it because it darkens the colour, and they've spent hours, especially if it's a portrait, getting all those gorgeous highlights, and then the minute you touch it, either if it's hairspray, fixative or water. But now that's a watercolour that's dried and it's not going anywhere. But we have these beautiful vibrant pastels, which would be very expensive if they were a watercolour because it's the pigment. But I like the fact you've got the best of both worlds here. Our Jane says she loves the tiny doors. Makes you imagine where to go. Yes, I must admit my hands are hurting, yeah, and that's why I really have to finish, because I really cannot do. There's some pages in here that I'm desperate to finish. This is pastel. This is all pastel, and I'm desperate to finish it, but and it's not set. I've just blended it, so it's blended, but it's not dead set. So I've got to have this. Cheap children's tracing paper is quite good. The colours won't smudge at all. There's hardly anything on here. but I just cannot at the moment do that. But if you're used to using pencils, then it will be fine. It's just my hands do not work, unfortunately. And my daughter didn't clean the pan properly, so I was scrubbing a pan yesterday, and I knew today I would not be able to move my hands. So it's my own fault. But unfortunately, these things happen. So I can normally do this all day. The Harry Potter one, I think I did most of it on the Thursday. There's about 10 hours. Most of it was just pootling along, picking bits out and colouring it in. But just today's is not a good day. If your hands are really bad, you just want to scratch a little bit of colour and use a damp rigger and blend it with a brush. It's just using this get some really nice effects. And I always like to do a nice job of these colour books. This is one of my favourite colour books, is this one. So thanks for joining me, and I will finish the pages eventually. Thanks for watching.